Okay, hi everybody, it's Michelle here from Robin's, and there's myself here today, and there's obviously Robin.
Hello!
You'll be glad to know that you won't have to look at my bake today, so we can just do the felting, and hopefully yous are all gonna felt along with me. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a few bits and pieces here sorted and let a few other people join, and we'll get started in a few minutes, so just bear with me. So I've got the comments just in front of me here, so if you are on, give me a wee hello and let me know who you are. Okay guys, I'm going to get started here. Today we're going to make our little, bring them up here. Okay, yeah. There's a wee lag, sorry, there's a wee lag in my, so I'm waving it about here. So our little needle felted robin. A lot of you's probably done this with me before Christmas time. I've done quite a few workshops with groups in the shop and out and about. This is a lovely wee project to start off with because it's quite simple. So I'll have the wee brooch on the back. So we're using 4 colours for this. If you are crafting along with me and you don't have the same colours as me, don't worry. It doesn't have to be a robin, could be any type of bird. So we're starting off with core, so we're going to take a little bit of core. And we actually want to just make this into a little disc. So if we fold it in and then we just start poking it with our needle. Now for anyone who hasn't felt it, I'll give you a wee quickie here because so this would be core, so this would be, we would use this quite a lot for the filling and stuffing of things. The colours, we would put this over the top. And our needles, now they're just not regular needles, they have little barbs on them, so what this does is when you actually poke the wool, this actually binds it together. So we just want to basically start poking this down. You should be over here helping me, Robin.
I'm sorry, but I'm taking the photo.
Oh right, okay. Robin's being the camera person.
I'm being a camera too.
So as you can see, this is getting a lot flatter now. And now we don't want to felt it down too hard and make it too solid. We still want to keep it quite soft until we actually don't poke yourself in the finger like I just did. Until we put our colours on. Oh, Jamie, hi, thank you so much for the Easter eggs.
Thank you.
Yeah, Robin absolutely loved them. Thank you, and Rebecca. Okay, so we're just filling this in, we're just making our disc. So it's still a wee bit fluffy. And we're going to felt it down a wee bit harder, but at this point we can start putting our coloured wool on and you will see it transforming into a robin very, very quickly. So we want to take a wee strip of the brown first of all and we put it over it just like this. You see that okay? We're going to give him a wee Donald Trump here, so we're going to fold this front bit back. I'll poke this down a little bit. Okay, so you can see that is covering the front of his head. And this is going to be his tail, so we want to fold this back because it's a bit long and a bit thin. Just book this down a little bit. It doesn't have to be very neat at the minute. And there's a few white patches there, so we can bring the brown over. It's a bit of a distraction here having a camera in front of me because I keep glimpsing at it and I'm really worried I'm going to stab myself, so it could get a bit bloody. Okay, so that's on roughly. And now we want to put our little bit of orange on, or red, or whatever colour you have. So we're just going to put this in his wee chest. And felt it on again quite lightly. Now, I can do one of these quite quickly, but it really depends the amount of time you want to spend on it. You can leave it quite soft and fluffy. The one I made earlier, it maybe took me about 10-15 minutes to make, and then I maybe spent about a half an hour just actually firming them up. So you can see the difference in size there. So he started off the same, so we just want to tighten it up a little bit. A few people had messaged me during the week too, and they were asking about core. What can I use if I don't have any core? Like there's a few things you'll use, and I'll actually show you at the end of it a few wee things to use. But you can use, if you're doing something quite big, you could use like a ball of wool and wrap your merino wool around it. You can also use stuffing for cushions. I've got a wee bit of this. I'll show you how to use it because it doesn't felt too well, but if you're stuck and that's all you have, it will do. I have ordered a batch of core. It should be in later this week because everyone seems to be running out of it at the minute. I think everybody's doing all their felting projects. So if you need any core at the end of the week, you can give me a shout. Otherwise, you can make do with your wool and your stuffing. So I'll show you how to do that at the end. So you can see this is starting to take shape a little bit. I keep comparing the two, so it will felt down, and this one, like I said, is quite firm. Now what I'm doing is, because this is actually quite thin, I'm not sticking the needle in too much. The barbs come all the way down, so the further you push the needle in, the more combined, the more compact it's going to be. So all we want to do at this stage is actually put the first few barbs in. So we want to do this quite lightly because you put the needle in the whole way and you're changing the whole infrastructure of the whole make. And we don't want to do that because we'll have the general shape. So we just really need to contour it a wee bit and firm it up. So you can see the shape of this is starting to change. And again, you can see I'm actually felting onto an old car sponge, which is fantastic. You don't have to spend loads of money on buying expensive needle felting mats. I mean, literally go down to Home Bargains and buy a few car sponges, and that does you just as well. It saves you like 18 quid, I think. is the rough price off them. So yeah, we're starting to, he's a little bit chubbier than the other wee one, but we can start to felt round his tummy. So I'm going to felt him in a wee bit more, and then I'm going to do his wee beak and his eye. Do the tail here too. Now if the tail isn't the right shape, if you just can't get it into that point, you can use scissors just to trim it. But don't cut it until it has been felted quite well, because when the wool is quite soft, it will just fall apart. So you have to wait until all this wool is actually quite firm. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit of black. I'm not a big fan of wet felting, but sometimes for smaller bits, needs must. So what I have here in Robin's gorgeous little egg cup is a tiny little bit of soap and water. So it's just liquid soap, and all I'm going to do is rub it together. I should have got a little bit of kitchen roll. As you can see, that's actually soaping up my hands. Thank you very much. So what this does, instead of using the barbs of your needle, you're actually agitating the wool with the soap and rubbing it in your hands. So this is probably a little bit too thin, but we can work with it. And I'll grab my scissors. Thank you. So we then have a little big, it's a little bit big, but we can put this on. I have one here that's just a wee bit thicker than I made earlier. So we want to attach this just between the brown and the orange, and this is a wee bit tricky to do. So you kind of have to hold both parts and just gently poke it in. And I keep reiterating, watch your fingers, because it is so easy just to stab them. It takes a wee bit of time to get this attached. You can glue in the workshops we had before Christmas, just as a time saver, because we were doing them in a really quick time frame. We had used air dry clay, so you can actually mould a little beak from air dry clay and glue it on, and it stays on quite well. I would use Mod Podge to stick it on. But the good thing about this is, if you're like me, I wear these wee brooches and I take them off and they're stuck to my clothes, and they end up getting thrown in the washing machine. If you have air dry clay, it will just absolutely fall apart. If that went in the washing machine right now, it would actually get harder. So just keep poking this in. And this is a little bit big, so I'm going to get the scissors and I'm going to cut this down a little bit. Just do a little bit of shaping around the edge. And a little bit of black. The tiniest wee bit for his eye. And just felt that in. I think the white is a little bit big, so I'm just going to poke this down a little bit, make it a little bit smaller, so you can just work with the shape of it. If it's not the shape you want, just do a wee bit of work on it. I'm not going to spend too much time with this one. I'm going to get the rough shape, and then if you make it at home, you can spend a wee bit more time on it. Oh, he's definitely a wee porker, yeah. So I'm going to put the brooch on now. And again, you can actually glue the brooch on, but a much better way is to use your wool just to felt it on. So we just need a little bit of the core again. And just be careful you don't hit the metal pin, because you can snap your needle really easily doing that. A few wee bits to look out for. I mean, anybody who's needle felted knows that the needles are very, very brittle, so you need to be very careful with them, and they're very thin at the end and they break very easily. So when you're felting, when you're poking it, just make sure it goes in and out. You can do it at an angle, but again, just make sure it's going in and out, and you don't move your needle when it's inside the wool, because otherwise that will just snap. The needle I'm using, by the way, I'm not sure if I said at the beginning, it's a 38 gauge, so there's different size needles, but to be honest, you don't really need an awful lot of needles. I find that a 38 is a really good all-rounder, because it felts really well for most things, and when you want to do the finer details, you just really use the tip of it, which is quite fine anyway. And it serves you the same way that a finer needle would. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but if you're doing it at home, just spend a wee bit more time on it. You can see there's still a wee bit loose. This one has been felted on a lot better, it's going nowhere. And you can put a little bit of wool just up round the little attachment here too. This just holds it on, gives it a wee bit of extra support. It's quite tricky to do this without actually hitting the brooch. Okay, so that close over, it's okay, but it could still do with a wee bit more work. So there you have the general shape of it. Again, if you're not happy with the tail, that has been felted down quite well. And I think I would bring this one, bring the white up a little bit and the brown down. But I can give the tail a little trim here, so if you're not happy with the shape of it, just give it a little trim. And again, a little bit more work around the beak. But if you have more time at home, just spend a wee bit more time on it. That will, I think you can see that there's still a bit of a difference. So this started off exactly the way that did, so you just spend a little bit of time working on the shape, moving this down a bit. But that's you, if you spend maybe about 15-20 minutes just actually shaping it, it turns into that one. So there you have your little needle felted robin. I'm going to show you very, very quickly too how to felt with the stuffing, because there is a bit of a trick to it. You can see it's very, very messy. It doesn't bind together too well. You can felt it, but it is harder to do and it takes longer. So if you get a little bit of thread, if I can find the end of this. So if any of you are stuck at home and you have some nice coloured wool but you don't have any core and you want to make something, just use that. It doesn't have to be neat. So just hold it together with a little bit of thread. You can then start wrapping your wool around it. And it does felt in. It's not ideal, it's not as good as core, but if you're stuck, it will do. Guys, that is me. Thank you very much for tolerating me, and I will hopefully see you again very, very soon. So, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.